Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamualaikum, Buta Hanif. How did the Al Jamaa party get involved?
Maulana, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, we got involved in events leading to the omnibus marriage bill, which the government is contemplating since 2008. And it looks like we've now reached there is now light at the end of the tunnel. In this program, we have with me the Secretary of the Al Jamaa Political Party, Councillor Farid Ahmad, and Maulana Halil Brinkhuis of the National Office. And we are broadcasting from the leafy suburb of Pinelands. Maulana, in 1995, I was part of a delegation led by Sheikh Abdul Karim Taufa, a senior academic of the Peace University of South Africa in Cape Town, and also Robben Islander Imam Ahmad Kashim, to engage the late Minister of Justice, Mr. Dalla Umar, and senior officials of the Department of Justice on the way forward for the recognition of Muslim marriages. Part of the delegation was the legal representatives of the Islamic Unity Convention, Attorney Ali Adams, and also a legal representative of PAGAT, who was very active at the time, mobilizing against gangsters and drugs. The minister suggested that we wait for legislation reforming our apartheid court structures, like the Superior Court's Bill and the 17th Amendment Bill of the Constitution, and therein find a space for a specialist court with a bench of Qadis, which was the outcome of a law commission investigation chaired by Chief Justice Ismail Mohammed. He wasn't Chief Justice at the time, but he was chairman, and amongst the members of the law commission were some of the most senior judges that we have today. So quite an august body. So Al Jamaa presented an amendment to the Constitution 17th Amendment Bill and further amendment to the Superior Court's Bill to the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development in the National Assembly on the 3rd of August 2011. How many years ago is that, Maulana? More or less? 6 years ago. Yeah. These amendments provided for faith matters from the holy text not to be declared unconstitutional. Your comments on that, Maulana? These amendments provided for faith matters from the holy text like the Quran and original holy texts from other scriptures not to be declared unconstitutional. What is your view on that, Maulana?
I think the time is right now, and the time is here now for us to enforce these kind of rules and so on.
Now tell me, do you think it's right for government to declare holy texts, like texts from the Quran, unconstitutional?
There can never be, South Africa being a democratic country and all-inclusive, it is important that they should also look at religious minorities and serve those communities.
And definitely not declare holy texts unconstitutional. And that was Al Jamaa's submission in the National Assembly, the first political party and the first organization to present the challenges Muslims are facing in the National Assembly, in Parliament. And to raise its concerns that when there is a nikah and one of the spouses pass on, the death certificate says never married, harming the dignity of the surviving spouse and the children. And we made it quite clear to the members of the Portfolio Committee across all political parties that that is unacceptable. Before that, in 2008, the party submitted a written proposal to the Joint Constitutional Review Committee of the two houses of Parliament to amend the Constitution to allow the Sharia to trump the Constitution in matters relating to Muslim marriage law. Now, this would have been in line with the provisions of the Constitution which provided for reasonable accommodation in these matters. Later in the matter before the South Gauteng High Court, where all the mainstream Muslim bodies were represented, as well as Muslim groups, the court asked Al Jamaah to submit his proposal to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, which Al Jamaah did on the 30th of May 2011. Here is the report. After the government decided to put the Muslim Marriages Bill on ice, the party was invited by the Office of the Secretary General of the ruling party to engage with the Big Six of the ANC and senior Muslim members of Parliament earlier this year. As a result of this engagement, on the sidelines of the NEC meeting, Al Jamaah was approached to come up with a religious marriage bill that will have religious muster amongst the different sections of the ulama, the Safis, the Hanafis, all the different madhabs. Some say there are 4, some say there are 8, but all the different madhabs. We were asked to come up with a bare bones bill that will avoid dissension amongst the ulama and with which other religious communities will not have a quarrel. Website.
Yes, our brothers and sisters, we will be posting the whole program on our website. You can find it on www.aljamaah.co.za. Shukran jazilan.
اللهم صل على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه وأمته أجمعين. اللهم افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير والحمد لله رب العالمين.
The party approached senior advocate Bauda from Pretoria, an expert in alternative dispute resolution, to come up with a draft. This draft was accepted by the senior muftis associated with the party all over the country. There are up to 9 senior muftis which enjoy tremendous respect amongst the Muslims in South Africa. The draft bill was submitted by the Office of the Secretary General of the ANC to the Director General of Home Affairs, Mr. Apleni, which later acknowledged that the draft bill is on his radar. When engaging the Big Six, the party was advised that the government is proposing an omnibus marriage bill. That is all marriage bills that will replace all other marriage acts or synchronize with these acts. Al Jamaah would like to share with its listeners on Al Jamaah Media that at the moment there is the Apartheid Marriage Act, which provides for marriage officers, but which has clauses that contradicts the Sharia and harms your Aqidah if you get married in terms of that act. This creates and then there's also the Same-Sex Marriage Act. There is the Civil Unions Marriage Act. There is the Cultural Indigenous Marriage Act. So there's quite a lot of marriage acts, but the government wants one marriage act to deal with personal law or marriages across the board. But what is missing, they don't have a Religious Marriages Act, and that's why Al Jamaah was asked for his assistance to pass a recognition of religious marriages bill, which it did. So this creates the space to recognize religious marriages as well, which the President has been unable to put on the parliamentary roll because of difference of opinion, especially amongst Muslim ulama, academics, and women groups and gender activists. In the matter in the High Court, which started at the end of August this year and is continuing for another week, where the Women Legal Center wants a court to deal with the unsatisfactory treatment of Muslim vulnerable women complainants by the dispute resolution committees of the ulama, Senior Advocate Albertus, on behalf of the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, the Honourable Sister Fatima Chauhan, deposed an affidavit that the Law Commission of South Africa will submit its draft report on the 16th of September 2017 on the proposed Omnibus Marriage Bill. The party understands that the Department of Home Affairs will then be able to establish whether the recognition of religious marriages bill prepared by Al-Jama'ah with the assistance of Senior Advocate Bauda can be accommodated. After the 16th of September, the party will engage the government on interim measures to replace piecemeal recognition of Muslim marriage law with full recognition. The party hopes that the bill it presented will help in this regard. It can then be accommodated in the Omnibus Marriage Act, which the party expects will become law before the end of the term of the office of the ANC. The term of office of the ANC. In the High Court, judges and advocates for the respondents went out of the way to state that children born out of a Muslim marriage are legitimate and that Muslim marriages enjoy recognition. It is clear that the court will not allow the Sharia to be tampered with, and the difficulty is how this can be accommodated in view of the activism of gender-based organizations and the proponents that has a view that the Constitution must trump the holy text. Al-Jama'ah has already raised the defense of equity versus equality in this regard with the Big Six and other interested parties. I want to go back, Maulana, to the claim by the Women's Legal Center that our ulama bodies are messing up with regard to dealing with disputes arising out of marriages. The judge was very concerned about this allegation, which we will deal with harshly when the respondents reply to this unwarranted defamation by the Women's Legal Center. The judge mentioned that the Women's Legal Center deals with about 1,000 cases. In their papers, about 10% of these cases are issues with regard to women and marriages. And of that 10%, there are possibly a dozen or two, maybe three Muslims. So you can't judge the good work of the ulama bodies on the basis of a dozen or two cases that came to your NGO, because there must be thousands of other women who are in marriages, who have disputes with their husbands, who go to these ulama bodies. Unless the Women's Legal Center says that out of the 500,000 Muslim marriages in South Africa, only a dozen or two, there are problems. No, like any other community, there are problems. In the marriage, then, soos in Afrikaans sê, is 'n hak en tak. So the ulama bodies are doing, in Al-Jama'ah's view, a very good job. And we stated that in an interjection in the High Court when our lawyer Zahir Umar stood up to defend the MJC, because the Women's Legal Center says that the MJC's good governance and practices are so bad, and they quoted an example of Imam Saban, who passed away recently, who talaked a woman in his pajamas.